Hi, I'm Paul West and I'm here at Vaucluse House, one of Australia's last remaining 19th century mansions that is still surrounded by its original grounds. And have a look at it, what a grounds! It's springtime, the sun's shining, the birds out, there's a hive of activity around here. I've never ever been to visit this property, so I can't wait to go and check it out. And because it's spring here at the garden, the team from Sydney Living Museums are flat out getting the grounds ready, getting the house ready to start accepting some visitors. Better go check it out. I'm here to meet Jackie Newling, one of Sydney Living Museum's curators who has a passion for colonial gastronomy and exploring how people cooked and ate food in colonial times. Hey Jackie, how you going?
Welcome to Vaucluse House.
Not a bad little pile you've got here.
It's a pretty special place.
Jackie, this place is spectacular. Can you tell me a little bit more about the house?
The original house was built in 1805 by a bit of an errant convict who's a little bit quirky. And of course it was an ideal location because we're right on Sydney Harbour. And you can imagine in those early days, that was the quickest way to town.
Yes.
Taking your rowboat or a little sailing boat up to town. But the way we see the house now really dates to the Wentworth family who bought the property in 1827, and they were a very wealthy and influential family, and they built it to this sort of grand level you see now.
Grand certainly is the word.
And it wasn't just the house. You've got these beautiful grounds that still exist, but if you look at a road map, the whole suburb of Vaucluse was their estate.
Wow.
So we're talking over 500 acres. So it was really very significant in its day, and it still is for us. This became into public hands in around 1910 and has been a house museum. It's been visited by Australians for over 100 years.
Well, I can't wait to have a more in-depth look because I've never been. I've never even been to Vaucluse full stop. This is the first time I've come over to this part of the city, so it's beautiful here.
Well, it's a very special place. What really excites me as a gastronomer is it has a kitchen that dates back to the 1820s, 30s.
Wow.
And a spectacular kitchen garden.
Ah, now you're talking. Haha. That sounds like it's right up my alley, Jackie.
Well, I think you should definitely go up there. Anita, a heritage horticulturalist, is up there today. But let's have a quick squeeze inside before I send you up there.
If you insist. I'd love to check out the grand residence. Jackie shows me around the Wentworth's house before I head over to the kitchen garden. What an amazing place. And the views of the gardens from the house are truly spectacular. Hello.
Hello, Paul.
Hi, Nita. How you going?
I'm very well, thanks.
Good
Welcome
see
to the
you.
kitchen garden.
Oh, it's a great looking garden.
It looks good, doesn't it?
And so you guys would be under the pump right now for springtime, wouldn't you? It's all happening
Everything's
in here.
growing like the clappers.
Look at it. Can we go for a wander if we go
Sure.
down for a bit of a wander? It's a fairly sizable garden here, Anita.
This garden right now is actually just under 1,600 square metres.
Ooh.
So this is just a little portion of what would have been here. The original size of what was cultivated would have been about 50 acres.
Wow.
So they would have had thousands of fruit trees over here, an orangery up there, some vineyards, and of course lots of vegetables for the family.
What's some of the stuff that you're planting in here at the moment?
Well, as you can see here, we've got rhubarb, which is looking fabulous. We've got our artichokes, we've got some lettuce coming up here, a cardoon, which you can see at the end, which is related to the artichoke. We've got a big patch of sweet potato behind you. And we've got these fabulous broad beans, which are looking pretty good at the moment.
And how do you think this would compare to what was grown here back in the 1800s?
We try to keep it fairly accurate as we can. So we go by what we know was available in the colony in the 19th century and certainly in the time that the Wentworths lived in the house. So we cross-reference seed lists and early nursery lists and the Botanic Gardens inventory, everything like that. And I think we do a pretty good job because what we're trying to do here is make this as important a part of the museum as the house and the pleasure garden is.
Well, because it's without the garden, the house never would have existed, right? Without
right.
this engine room to feed
That's exactly
nearly
right.
50 people that were here on site.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
A lot of what you see here growing, we actually start in our glass house.
Very
So
nice.
we sow a lot of seed when we know we need to, like the rhubarb we would have started in the glass house, the artichokes, the lettuce. So we direct sow the broad beans and we direct sow our root vegetables,
Yes,
carrots
nice.
and beetroot and onions.
Is the soil here better than you'd expect to find in this kind of area because it's been cultivated and tended for so long? Do you find really nice little patches of fertile soil?
Absolutely not.
Oh, really? It's the opposite. Yeah,
The whole
right.
of Vaucluse is sand.
Yeah.
So what you see here is sand with lots of added organic matter. So the sand is a bit darker, and a lot of people come through here and they say, gee, you've got really good soil. And we say, well,
Easy to dig.
yeah, it's just sand with a lot of compost and manure in it. But you can see what you can grow in sand. It's really
Yes.
quite productive.
So the early settlers must have had their work cut out for them trying to grow a European style market garden here, or kitchen garden, in a very unforgiving location.
From scratch, yes, they would have been beside themselves. But they would have had to do it.
But you never know, looking around now, it looks so abundant. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's a very abundant garden. We're very happy with it. So once everything was ready to be harvested, the house staff would come over here and take it back to the kitchen where they would prepare the Wentworth's meals.
Oh, well, so I've seen the kitchen garden. Now it would make sense that I go and see the kitchen itself.
kitchen.
Can you point me in the right direction, Anita?
It's way over there, and I know Jackie is waiting for you.
Okay, I'm going to get lost.
Okay.
If you find me back here in half an hour, don't
Thank
be
you, Paul.
surprised.
Thanks for coming.
Hello again, Jackie.
How did you go?
Oh, just making myself at home, actually. I feel like one of the Wentworths.
Yes, why not? Take up residence.
Well, if you insist, I think I could probably quite happily live in a home like this.
Well, you certainly won't go hungry.
No, and I love the proximity of the kitchen garden to the home, and I'm assuming this back section here is the servants' quarters, house kitchen.
Yep, so, you know, most houses, as we know, have a kitchen.
Yes.
The Wentworth had a kitchen wing,
Yes.
a whole service wing.
We needed to serve 50 people on a regular basis.
It could be up to that. So it was a
Yes.
very, very industrious space. At the moment it feels like a park, but you can imagine, you know, you can see the relationship between the kitchen garden, the stream that runs through the middle, and then, you know, I've got a herb garden, the kitchen itself. This would have been really quite a busy thoroughfare. People going back and forth. All the kitchen scraps would have gone to the animals. You know,
Yes.
they had chooks and pigs, and they even had a house cow for producing their own milk. So it was a really sort of integrated,
Yeah.
self-sustaining system for very many years.
Sounds like it was quite a resilient little settlement here.
It's a perfect valley, you
Yeah.
know, for a large family. And eventually, you know, we think of Vaucluse, it's really only 10 k's from the city. We think of it as part of the city. But
Yes.
in the 1830s, when they first came here, it was really quite remote. So they really needed to be quite self-sufficient. So the kitchen wing itself, the servants would have slept upstairs in
Yes.
quite small quarters. But downstairs here, you'll see when we go inside, the kitchen itself is quite grand. But then there's also a scullery, there's a dairy and a larder, of course no refrigeration. So these were your cool rooms, and they also had a cellar for long-term storage.
Oh, sounds like my dream kitchen.
I think you'll find it that way.
What's a kitchen without a dairy?
Absolutely. So come on, have a look.
Thank you. Oh, very exciting. And that's the cellar down there.
Yes,
And
so it's
the-
still got the meat hooks hanging from the ceiling where they'd have hung their, you know, legs of ham and all the rest. And then you just let your eyes adjust a little.
Oh, wow.
It's the real deal, huh?
This is the kitchen.
Yes.
It's massive.
Yes. And as I said, this is only part of the kitchen. You know, this was the cooking space. It feels quite ambient today, but it would have been steamy, sweaty, smelly, meaty, you
Yes.
know, boiled calves' heads on the stove and, you know, hams, you know, possibly whole animals being broken down on that table. And of course, once an animal is brought in, you've got to do something with it straight away because
Yes.
there was no refrigeration. So there was lots of pickling and preserving and jam making and corned beefing and, you know, all that stuff that we now think of as nostalgia.
Yes.
It was a reality.
Sounds like my dream kitchen, really, to walk into. I can imagine that this would have been the beating heart of the whole property in its heyday.
I absolutely agree with that. Yes, yes.
And so what we can see here, like the furniture, is that original?
So
from
many
the
of
house,
these
or is
pieces
that-
are original to the Wentworth family. You know, those fixtures were here when the house was put into public hands. And, you know, there have been many generations who have looked after them over the years. The copper saucepans are typical of a family of this calibre. A lot of people would have just used iron or tin, but wealthier people were able to afford copper, and quite an extensive, what they called a batterie de cuisine. So, you know, a different pot for every job.
Yes, yes.
That kind of thing. But of course, that was all very fine having the money to buy them. If you were this poor scullery maid who had to clean them, lemon juice and salt to keep it, you know, just can't get good staff these days. Look how tarnished they are.
So I'd imagine that would have felt great on the old scullery hands, lemon juice and salt non-stop.
Yes, it wasn't the palm olive you're soaking in. So, you know, it feels so grand to us now, but it was a real roll your sleeves up, industrious place. Yes, there's a lot of hard work going on.
Jackie, I can smell the hearth. Is there a fire burning in here?
Yes, there is. You can even see a little bit of smoke haze, I think. So again, no electricity, no gas. Everything was either wood or coal-fired. And again, dirty work.
Yeah.
You know, someone out there sweating.
Sweaty work.
Absolutely.
You imagine cooking over a fire on a 40-degree day in the middle of summer.
Well, this is the trouble. A lot of the traditions came over from England. It was still very much an English-style diet. They did make concessions for the Australian climate, and certainly they could grow a lot more exotic and sort of tropical vegetables and
things,
you know, pineapples and things like that.
Spain and France and Africa for.
Exactly. So they were really celebrating the breadth of produce here, but the cooking styles were still very English and, yes, very stove-bound.
There must have been some hardened cooks
I think so.
in here once upon a time.
I think so.
Before I head off back home, we share a meal and talk about what life would have been like here at Vaucluse House in the 1800s. Well, Jackie, that asparagus was delicious.
It's a taste of springtime, isn't it?
It really is. So it's been wonderful to walk through the gardens and explore the house and to cook with you and to really gain some insight into that connection between food, culture and history that's so thick on the ground here at Vaucluse House.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Really wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, if you keep cooking like this, Jackie, you're not going to be able to get rid of me. It's been a great experience getting to step back and appreciate the sustainable ways of the past. And I'm excited by how more and more people have really adopted those values of staying in tune with the seasons, growing their own kitchen gardens, and importantly, sharing food with family and friends.